We're back with another cool build video. Today we are showing off our new silicone wine caddy molds. A wine caddy, if you aren't familiar, if you have a bottle of wine, bottle of champagne, 2 glasses, these caddies sit over the bottle top neck, and then 2 glasses insert into these caddies, and effectively it's just a nice display. I've seen a lot of people on Instagram making these, mostly with John from Ehanui Artisans acrylic templates. I mean, wine caddies aren't like an original, revolutionary design, but John's acrylic templates are really cool. So if you aren't looking to do like pure resin or this kind of format, you should, and you just want to like router out one of these, you can definitely check John's Ehanui's templates. But anyway, what I'm going to say here is with these, you can use these molds to create pure resin, or I mean, I guess you could do some concrete, but pure resin wine caddies, or you could create resin and wood pieces using a hybrid approach. So I'm going to do that today. I'm going to be using resin and wood. What I'm going to do is show you that right now we've got 2 different designs. We've got kind of like an oval shaped one with the inserts for the glasses at the end, and we've got another oval shaped one which is straight on the sides and then angled wine glass inserts. I'm going to be using this one today. I've pre-sprayed it with my MG Chemicals epoxy mold release. Try to say this in most of our videos, but make sure you use a mold release with all silicone molds, not just ours, because epoxy is very harsh on silicone molds and definitely starts to deteriorate them if you don't use a mold release, especially a proper mold release. Don't use a urethane mold release. Use a mold release specific to silicone molds. We recommend the MG Chemicals one, Smooth On has one, Man has one. There's a few different companies that make a good mold release. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to be using this mold, and I've pre-cut a couple of pieces of maple burl, and these are obviously taller. I think these are 1 1/4, 1.5 inch tall, and these molds are 1 inch. So obviously these are going to sit proud of the mold, but that's fine because once we actually demold this, we're going to just run it through the planer anyway. So I'm going to get a closer view of what I'm doing here so you can see, and we'll get started. Today I'm going to be using the Alumilite deep pour, rather amazing deep pour. Alumilite provided this to us for one of our previous giveaways and videos. So thank you, Alumilite, for getting this cool product to us. I've already pre-mixed some clear, and I've already pre-mixed some black, and pre-mixed some Merlot, Merlot being appropriate because these are wine caddies. So I've gone ahead and placed my wood in here after spraying the mold release. And you might be wondering, well, how do you keep the wood from floating up? Well, all we're going to do is this. Put a block on it, maybe a weight, or you can clamp it down depending on how you're positioning on your desk. There's a lot of ways you can kind of approach that. But so without delaying more and blabbing, I'm just going to go ahead and pour some clear all over this thing right up to the top. Or more or less up to the top, because what I want to do is I want to grab my colors and mix them in there. All right, that's it. Our mold is basically full to the top, and we are going to put the HDP block on and let it dry. And I use HDP because obviously, as you probably know, resin doesn't stick to it. So if we get any resin coming up and sticking to the block, our block's still going to come off. So we're going to let this dry till tomorrow and let it set, come back and demold it, and then we can planer down and put it to work. We're back a few days later, and our resin in our wine caddy mold is fully set. And I've just taken the weight off the top, and watch this, quick bend, and it all just pops out of there. Left with a pretty clean mold, and there's our piece. We had a little bit of resin overpour, but that's cool because we're going to run it through the planer now and finish it up. All right, so what I'm going to do now is use the router table and a radius bit or a rounding bit in the router take a nice round edge to all this, and then we'll continue from there. You may or may not have noticed, but the planer took a chunk out of this thing on the way through. So it's not ideal, but we're going to sand it out and it'll still be all right. No project's perfect, and as a woodworker, resin artist, you probably know that. If I was making this for someone, I'd probably start over, but for the sake of this demo, I think it's going to be sufficient. I mean, it'll still look pretty nice, despite that little divot on the top. Let's get started sanding. Sanded this bad boy down to 400 grit. Now some people go further with the resin and wood projects. I usually go to 400 just because the oil that I use, Waller's oil, typically recommends like 220 to 320 for the oil to actually penetrate the wood. Once you start getting really, really fine, like 1,000 grit sanding or 2,000 grit, the resin will look really nice, but the wood might not collect the oil as much. Now at this point, you could oil it, which is what I'm going to do because it's honestly the easy way to make it look good. Or you could top coat it. Top coating or flood coating involves just putting a clear layer of resin over the entire thing, which will make it really, really shiny and polished looking. But of course, if you are using this mold and you're not using wood, you don't even need to worry about this. I mean, if you're just using it with resin, you trim off your excess resin meniscus and you wouldn't have to sand, you wouldn't have to oil, you wouldn't have to do anything. You just pop it out of the mold and go. But in this case, I'm doing that through the planer, sander, etc., because we are using wood with this project. So I'm going to stop blabbing. I'm going to put it in our oil vat and make this thing really pop. Well, that marks the end of this project. We finished our absolutely beautiful but imperfect wine caddy, which came out of that silicone mold. And we've got a couple of these silicone molds, a couple of wine caddy designs available, as well as a ton of other large format silicone molds for makers, resin artists, and woodworkers. So if you want to get your own wine caddy mold or one of our other awesome molds, head over to craftedelements.com now. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.